Hello guys, welcome back to Audible Odyssey. So let's step into a world of immersive storytelling where gripping tales of mystery, horror and adventure come to life. Each narration is crafted to pull you into the heart of the story, creating an unforgettable audio experience. From spine-tingling horrors to timeless classics, Audible Odyssey Adventures is your gateway to thrilling journeys beyond imagination. Subscribe now, and let the stories take you to places you've never dreamed of. Audible Odyssey Presents. I've never been afraid of the dark, not until I started working the night shift at Harrison's 247 Gas and Convenience, a dingy little station on the outskirts of the old industrial district. Before this job, I'd roll my eyes at people who got spooked easily after sunset. Ghost stories, horror flicks, urban legends. None of that kept me up at night. At least not until I saw what was crawling around my neighborhood after midnight. Let me tell you, a lot of it is real or close enough to real to keep you awake, hearing every strange knock on the window and watching every flicker of movement outside the glass. People assume that the worst thing you'll deal with working a late shift in a rough part of town is the odd robber or junkie. I wish that was the worst I've seen. It's been about 6 months now since I starting at around 10 p.m. and leaving at 6 o'clock. I took it because I needed the extra money to help with tuition. No one else wanted these hours or to stay in such a crime-ridden area overnight. Harrison sits in the shadow of an abandoned steel mill, rusted fences lining broken roads. Beyond that lies a cluster of rundown houses, many boarded up, and further still the remains of old factories half swallowed by weeds. The city mostly forgot about this corner, letting it rot at the edges, but a few stragglers still live here, and they do come by for gas smokes, coffee, lottery tickets and other reasons. During my first week on the job, the manager, Clint, gave me a crash course in lockdown procedure. He was a gaunt man in his late 40s with tired eyes that screamed that he'd seen too much. The day I arrived, he tossed me a ring of keys and pointed at a grated door in the back of the store. "If things got bad," he said, voice low, "lock the front door and go through the lock room. There's a heavy metal security door. There is a key to see. Shut it behind you and wait till dawn if you have to." I laughed nervously, thinking he was exaggerating. Bad, like a robbery. He shook his head. "You'd be lucky." That statement echoed in my mind for a while. But on that first week nothing happened, just the occasional shady character paying for beer and leaving. It felt anticlimactic to the point I wondered if Clint was messing with me. Then Sunday came, at 2 a.m. I was wiping down the coffee station when the store phone rang. We hardly ever used the store phone. People usually call for corporate issues or lost credit card receipts during normal hours, not in the dead of night. The ring made me jump. "Harrison," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. A crackle of static, then a hushed voice closed the front door and locked it. I looked around, seeing no one else who was there, just locking it. The caller repeated, then hung up. I was terrified. Was a prank. But then I remembered Clint's words. I glanced around. The gas station was empty of customers outside. The lot was dark. I saw no cars, just the flickering lamp of the one working street light. I took a shaky breath and, feeling ridiculous, locked the front door. I even flipped the open sign to closed and switched off the overhead sign outside. Not a minute later, I saw 2 figures trudging along the sidewalk. At first, I couldn't make out any details. Then they passed under the street light. One was very tall, unnaturally so, at least 7 foot tall but rail thin. The other was shorter, stooped, his arms dangling strangely. They drifted across the lot, then paused, turning as if sniffing the air. My stomach twisted at the way that the tall one craned his neck, eyes scanning. They stepped closer, not quite facing the glass but near enough that I could see well. Let's just say that their faces didn't look normal. The tall one's eyes were sunken and you could see suggestions of teeth that looked more pointy than normal. The shorter one's face was mostly hidden, but I glimpsed patches of what might have been scales or ridges on its forehead as they wandered up to the door. The taller one tried the handle locked. I crouched behind the counter in terror. After a moment of ominous silence, I heard footsteps scraping the pavement. Peering cautiously, I saw them move on, their silhouettes dissolving into the gloom beyond the station lights. I didn't open the store again until sunrise. The phone never rang back that night, nor was there any mention in the local news about tall creatures creeping around the industrial district, but I knew I'd seen something. But the next day, Clint just gave me a nod when I explained. "You did good," was all that he said, like it was perfectly normal. The second strange incident happened about 3 weeks later, about midnight. I was reading some dog paperback novel to kill time. No customers for the past hour. The security cameras showed nothing. Then a truck rumbled up to the station. It was parked on the far side near the dumpsters. That was odd. Delivery trucks usually arrive in the daytime. I stepped outside and the smell of diesel in the air. The trailer was unmarked, battered, lights off. I walked over, cautious but curious. The driver's door opened, revealing a woman with long stringy hair. She slid down and shot me a quick glance that made my skin crawl. Her eyes were dark, ringed by smudges, like she hadn't slept in days. Without a word, she marched to the back of the trailer and unlocked it. The interior lights flickered on, revealing row after a row of crates stacked haphazardly. "What can I help you?" I asked. "We don't get random shipments at midnight." She ignored me, rummaging in a crate, then she dragged out a large bag. It was stained before my mind could register what might be in it. She asked where's the dumpster was. That's when I noticed an acrid odor coming from the bag. It smelled like rotting meat. I mumbled, pointing behind the gas station. "The dumpsters are in a fenced enclosure." She hoisted the bag onto her shoulder. Something inside squelched. I fought not to gag without a second glance as she made her way to the dumpsters. I stood there stunned until I heard the lid of the dumpster slam shut. A moment later, she reappeared, hands empty, walking back to her trailer. She slid into the driver's seat, the engine roared awake. She didn't go into the store, didn't pay for anything, just left that vile bag in our dumpster. The truck rumbled away, tail lights vanishing into the night. I wanted to check what was in that bag, but something in my gut said, "Don't, for the love of God, don't." Eventually, though curiosity got the better of me, I grabbed a flashlight, put on gloves, and approached the dumpster. The reek was overpowering. Lifting the lid, I spotted the bag half submerged in trash. It was partially open, revealing lumps of raw pinkish matter. I don't really know how else to explain it. At first I thought it was just animal carcasses, pigs or goats or something. Then I saw a hint of cloth, like a shredded shirt. I dropped the lid immediately, staggering back. Surely that wasn't the body. I dialed the police, hands shaking uncontrollably. The cops arrived about half an hour later. They sealed off the area, took my statement, and went through the dumpster. I expected them to find something horrific, but after about an hour an officer came inside. "Are you sure you saw a bag of remains?" he asked. I stared at him. "Of course, there's no way it could have been anything else." He just shook his head. "We found nothing but regular trash, no bags, no body parts, impossible." I told them about the truck, the driver, the cameras. I ran to show them the feed, but the footage was corrupted. Just attic from 11:58 p.m. to 12:25 a.m. The officer gave me a look of skepticism, but he let me file a report. They left no further questions. I spent the rest of the night feeling sick. Clint took the news with a weary expression. "This is a place where weird folks know how to cover their tracks," he said. Then he patted my shoulder. try not to get involved in whatever you see. Okay, just keep your head down. Easier said than done. Not everyone who comes by is a monster or a potential murderer. Some folks are just strange. Night after night we get a handful of recurring customers. They never cause direct trouble, but something about them sets off alarm bells in my head, like Mr. V, as I call him, a tall man in a black trench coat who always buys raw meat from our tiny fridge section. We're not exactly known for fresh products, so we keep a small cooler of bacon, sausages and ground beef. He empties it sometimes, paying in crumpled bills. He never speaks beyond under gray good evening, and he never seems to cook the meat, because once he asked which of these was the freshest and I told him the brand, but he just stared at the shrink-wrapped beef as if he was going to devour it on the spot. I kid you not, his eyes dilated. He paid and left without another word. Then there's table, a quiet woman who always shows up at around 2:30 in the morning wearing tattered black clothing and heavy boots. She has scars on her forearms, deep jagged ones, and she smells faintly of gunpowder every time she purchases 2 energy drinks and a bottle of bleach. Nothing else. She never acknowledges me beyond nodding the first time I tried making small talk. She gave me a blank stare as if deciding whether I was worth talking to, then turned away. Now I just ring her up in silence. She leaves, heading off to who knows where. Sometimes, after she goes, I see her silhouette in the parking lot, crouching near the drain. She might be cleaning something or waiting for something. I've tried to watch discreetly, but she always disappears if I linger too long between 2 and 4 a.m. A weird hush falls over everything. Traffic is non-existent. The city sleeps, and the few locals here either hide behind locked doors or wander in a daze. That's when I get uneasy, because that's when things come out, like someone standing by the far end of an aisle. I pivot and see only empty shelves. The store's fluorescent lights must play tricks with your mind. Clint told me to never go outside at 3 a.m. to replenish the ice machine or restock the pumps. Do it earlier or wait until after 4. He wouldn't explain why, only that some deliveries happen at 3. I pictured the truck from before, that horrifying bag, so I obey. One night I heard scratching at the back door. It sounded like nails on metal. The camera feed for the back area was always grainy, but I checked anyway. Nothing, just the locked service door. The scratching continued in earnest. Then came a whisper right at the threshold. I know you're in there. I nearly lost my nerve. Instead, I clicked off all the store lights, hoping that whoever it was would leave. The scratching intensified for a few moments, then silence. I sat behind the counter, flashlight in hand, until dawn broke. It's never happened since about 2 months ago, though I had an encounter that truly broke me. It started like a normal shift. I was behind the register dozing off when the door chime rang. I looked up. Someone stepped in wearing a heavy coat and a wide-brimmed hat that hid most of their face. The figure walked slowly, almost limping, heading straight for the alcohol coolers. I said my usual greeting. They didn't respond. I thought nothing of it. Some customers prefer quiet, but then an awful stench hit me, like charcoal mixed with cheap cologne and something else I couldn't quite put my finger on. I swallowed, watching as the figure rummaged around in the cooler, pulling out a 6-pack of cheap beer in their hand. I swear it looked bony. They approached the counter and set the beer down. I forced a polite smile. Anything else? I asked, trying to ignore the smell. A moment of silence, then a voice rasped from beneath the brim of cigarette menthol packs. I nodded, turning to grab them. My hand shook a little because my instincts screamed danger. I slid the cigarettes across. His face was hidden by shadow. I didn't want to stare at him, so I kept my head down as I served him. They placed a W of bills on the counter, crumpled and stained. I rang them up, trying not to gag. Then as they took their change, the figure said, "You smell healthy." Every cell in my body told me to flee. Instead, I just stared, speechless. Something about their voices was simultaneously hollow and wet. They leaned forward. "Working so late isn't safe. You never know who might come by." My mind went blank. I'm fine, I managed. They gave a low chuckle, a rattling sound, then they turned and left. The door slid shut, leaving behind an echo of that vile stench. I realized my shirt was damp with sweat. It took me 10 minutes to calm down. I checked the security camera afterwards. It was static again from the moment they entered until the minute after they left. Over the months I've collected countless small horrors, broken glass outside that reforms into strange patterns, a lost baseball cap that makes you feel incredibly strange if you put it on. But the final straw came 2 weeks ago. It was near 4 a.m., the witching hours, almost over a typical quiet shift with only 1 or 2 customers all night. I was sipping stale coffee, counting the minutes until dawn. Then a battered sedan showed up. Out stepped a middle-aged woman, hair disheveled, eyes wild. She ran inside, nearly crashing into the door. "Lock it," she gasped, grabbing my sleeve. "You have to lock it, hurry." She looked terrified. Without hesitation I flipped the lock, adrenaline surging. "What's going on?" I asked. She pressed her back against the wall. "I was driving from the hospital, saw something in the road. It wasn't human. It chased my car. I barely got away. It followed you here." She nodded, trembling. "It was on all fours, but it had eyes like a person." I scanned the parking lot through the glass. The area seemed empty. "Look, maybe we should call the police." Before I could finish, a thud struck the back door of the station, reverberating through the store. The woman screamed, covering her mouth. I grabbed the phone and dialed 911. Busy tone, busy at 4 a.m. The thudding came again, accompanied by an inhuman sonar. My mind flashed to the lockdown drill that Clint taught me. "This way," I whispered, motioning for the woman to follow me to the stock room. We hurried behind the shelves, past the soft drinks and candy racks. Another furious impact rattled the metal back door. I fumbled with a ring of keys, finding number 4. The security door in the stockroom was old and stiff, but I managed to yank it open. The woman and I ducked inside a small hallway beyond, where another locked door led to a god knows where exit. Hopefully, the back door screeched. I heard metal warping. I then had a terrible realization: we're trapped. If that creature broke through, we had no direct exit. The second locked door might have led outside, but I'd never used it. The woman was sobbing softly. I forced my shaking hands to try the second door. Key 708 at last. Click. I pulled it open and we stumbled into a narrow alley behind the station. Keeping low, we crept alongside inside the building, hearing growls from inside, a crash. Maybe the creature had for the door. My insides turned to jelly. We tiptoed through the alley, emerging onto a side street. Her sedan sat in the lot. If we made it there, we could escape. We sprinted for her car, hearts in our throats as we reached it. I caught a glimpse of the thing in the reflection of the passenger window. I don't believe in werewolves, but that sight made me think. Twice we lunged into the car. She revved the engine, tires squealing. The creature slammed into the rear fender. The car lurched, but she stomped on the gas. We sped out of the parking lot, flying down the deserted road. She dropped me off 6 blocks away near a cluster of still occupied houses. I thanked her shakily, then she sped off, not wanting to linger. Morning was just breaking. A part of me felt guilty for leaving the station, but what else could I do? I couldn't handle another second there, not with that monster inside. I showed up the next afternoon fully expecting to be fired, but Clint just shook his head and said nothing about my disappearance. The back door was intact. Not a scratch. The stockroom door was locked, no sign of forced entry. The security footage for 3:50 a.m. to 5 a.m. was static. Of course I realized that I couldn't keep doing this. The horrors of this job had eroded my nerves completely. That day I put in my notice. Clint didn't argue. He only handed me a final paycheck envelope. Inside was my usual pay plus a hefty bonus. No explanation. As I packed my stuff, Clint said softly, "This place gets under your skin. It's good you're leaving." I looked at Him seeing the toll of the years in his tired gaze. "Why do you stay?" I asked. He shrugged. "Someone has to man the station." Then he gave me a faint sad smile. "But not you, not anymore." I walked out, never to return. The nightmare lingered, though my current job is a safe day shift at a mall miles away. Yet sometimes I catch a whiff of that rancid smell or see a figure out of the corner of my eye that's too tall, too thin at night. I wake up thinking I can hear things, only to find that there's nothing there. There are corners of the city no one wants to admit exist where reality phases at the seams. Harrison's gas inconvenience is one of those problems. I'm not ashamed to say that I now dread the darkness, especially near that part of town. I try to avoid the area as much as possible, but sometimes it's unavoidable. Sometimes I still see headlights turning into that place, lured by cheap gas or desperation, unaware of the horrors that might await them. I whisper a silent warning whenever I pass: don't stop here, don't linger after midnight, don't look too closely at the customers, because once you see them, and I mean truly see them, you'll never be able to sleep soundly again. For more terrifying creepypasta horror stories, check out the playlist. So guys, the video has ended now. If you like our stories and want to see more videos like this, please subscribe to Audible Odyssey channel and do all these things: like, comment, share, and subscribe. Enjoy horror and adventure stories like this. So just subscribe to Audible Odyssey. Bye bye.